If you have the courage to hear the full nightmare, stay till the end. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to uncover more terrifying stories like this. I realized something was horribly wrong the night I saw my own shadow standing in the hallway before I even stepped out of my room. I had moved into the old Victorian house on Ashford Lane, Portland, just 3 days earlier. It looked peaceful from the outside. Quiet street, tall maple trees, and a faint smell of damp wood that reminded me of forgotten summers. But inside, the house carried a silence that wasn't normal, a heavy, breath-holding silence, like the walls were listening. That night, around 2:47 a.m., I woke to the sound of a light tap, 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 almost like fingernails brushing the wooden floor. For a moment, I thought it was a branch hitting the window, but the sound was coming from the hallway. I got out of bed slowly, the cold air biting my skin. When I opened the door just a few inches, the dim glow of the corridor lamp revealed something impossible. A shadow stretching across the hallway wall. My shadow. Same shape, same shoulders, same stance. Except, I was still inside my room. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. The silence around me felt terrifyingly alive, like the entire corridor was holding a pulse I couldn't hear. The figure on the wall didn't move. It stood perfectly still, facing the attic stairs. The attic door was closed, yet the shadow pointed directly toward it. Its arm extended in a way mine wasn't. A chill crawled up my spine. I stepped back. The shadow didn't. I whispered to myself, "This isn't real, this isn't real." But it didn't vanish. For a few seconds, the entire house felt suspended in a tension so sharp it could cut skin. Then suddenly, the corridor light flickered. Once, twice, and on the third flicker, the shadow's head slowly tilted, as if turning to look at me through the crack in my door. My heart began pounding so loud the hallway silence felt like it was echoing it back at me. I closed the door gently, hands shaking, and pressed my back against it. That's when I heard the whisper, not from inside my room, not from the hallway, but from directly above me, in the attic. A soft, dragging sound, like something large being pulled across dusty floorboards. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. When morning finally arrived, sunlight spilled across the corridor, warm and harmless. I stepped out hesitantly and looked toward the hallway wall. Nothing. No shadow. But the attic door, locked since I moved in, was now slightly open. Just an inch. Enough to show a dark slice of the void inside. Enough to tell me last night wasn't a dream. Morning light may comfort normal houses, but on Ashford Lane, in that old Victorian skeleton I had moved into, daylight only felt like a thin disguise, one that barely covered whatever pulsed underneath. The inch-wide gap in the attic door bothered me all day. I tried to convince myself I had imagined it, but what doesn't move on its own, and shadows don't arrive ahead of their owners. The house sat unervingly still as I made coffee in the narrow kitchen. Every few minutes, I found myself glancing at the staircase, half expecting to see something or someone watching. By afternoon, curiosity dug its claws into me. I climbed the stairs carefully, each step creaking like brittle bones under my weight. The air grew colder the higher I went, and by the time I reached the attic landing, I could see my breath faintly fogging the air. The attic door stood there, old white paint peeling off like dead skin. I placed my hand on the knob. It was warm. Warm, as if someone had been holding it moments ago. I felt something twist in my stomach. Slowly, I pushed the door open. The darkness inside swallowed the light from the hallway. Dusty air drifted out, carrying a strange scent, charcoal and damp paper, almost like an abandoned artist's studio. A single sliver of light from a tiny window cut across the room, illuminating particles dancing silently in the thick gloom. There was nothing inside at first glance. Just old boxes, some broken furniture, and the cold wooden floor. But then, a faint scrape echoed from the far side of the attic. I froze. Another scrape. Then a soft drag, like fabric being pulled across the floorboards. I leaned forward slightly, and that's when I saw it. Against the far wall was a large sheet of yellowed paper pinned unevenly to the wood. A charcoal sketch. A sketch of me. The hair, the jawline, the posture, it was unmistakably my silhouette. But the eyes were completely blacked out, scribbled so heavily the charcoal had dug into the paper. I stared at it, feeling a cold pressure spread through my chest. The sketch wasn't there when I moved in. The previous owner's boxes were dust-choked and untouched. This drawing looked fresh. My hands trembled as I took a step closer. That's when the corridor light behind me flickered again, and a long, stretched shadow slid across the attic floor. My shadow. But I wasn't standing in a way that should have cast it there. I wasn't close enough to the light. I wasn't even angled right. Yet the shadow crawled forward, slowly elongating, reaching the sketch on the wall like a black stain. Then its arm lifted. Mine did not. A pulse of cold shot through my entire body. Suddenly, footsteps thudded down on the first floor. Heavy, slow, deliberate. Someone else was in the house. The attic door creaked behind me and began closing on its own. The attic door closed with a slow, steady groan. Not slamming, not forced. Just decisively, like something on the other side wanted me sealed in with the darkness. I spun toward it, my heart hammering. The doorknob twisted and then stopped halfway. Someone was holding it from the outside. "Hello," I whispered, but the word felt thin and useless, swallowed instantly by the suffocating silence. For a moment, all I could hear was my own pulse thudding in my ears. Then, the footsteps returned downstairs. Heavy, measured, like a person walking through my living room. Except I lived alone. I backed away from the attic door, eyes fixed on the thin slice of light beneath it. A shadow moved across the gap. Slow, dragging, distinctly human. Someone was right outside. The floor beneath me groaned as I stepped back, and the moment it did, the shadow outside the door froze, as if whoever cast it was listening, waiting. Seconds ticked by. Then the shadow pulled away from the door, and the footsteps descended the staircase, each step creaking with the weight of someone tall. I didn't dare breathe until the last footstep echoed faintly from the ground floor. I pushed the attic door open and slipped into the hallway, careful, silent. My legs were trembling so badly I had to grip the railing to stay steady. The house was dim, the afternoon sun fading behind thick clouds outside, casting the rooms in a gray, lifeless haze. I crept down the stairs one step at a time. Halfway down, something caught my eye. The front door, wide open. Wind from Ashford Lane pushed in fallen leaves, scattering them across the hallway like tiny dry bones. Had someone gone outside? Or had they just entered? I reached the bottom of the stairs, scanning every corner. The kitchen was quiet. The living room sat still, the old couch covered in a sheet like a body bag. My phone vibrated in my pocket suddenly. A notification that made my stomach twist. Your Nest Cam detected movement. I had set up the camera on the front porch the day I moved in. Hands shaking, I opened the video. The live feed loaded. And there, standing at the edge of my porch, was a man. Tall, face blurry, like the camera couldn't quite capture him. He wore a faded gray coat, one sleeve torn. He stood perfectly still, staring at the front door, my open door. Then, slowly, he lifted a hand. Not to wave, not to knock, but to mimic the exact way my shadow had pointed toward the attic last night. Straight up, as if pointing to the roof, to where I had just been. A cold dread washed over me. Then the man stepped out of the camera frame, disappearing to the right, toward the side of the house. A crackling sound came from the living room wall. I turned my head slowly. A new shadow was forming there. Tall, still, not mine. The new shadow on the living room wall was wrong. It wasn't stretched or distorted like a natural shadow. It moved with a purposeful slowness, gliding across the wallpapered wall like a black river flowing uphill. I froze. My phone slipped from my hands, clattering against the wooden floor. The man on the porch? He was gone. Yet this shadow was unmistakably human in form. Tall, broad shoulders, and a head that tilted ever so slightly, as if acknowledging me. I swallowed the scream rising in my throat. Slowly, I edged closer. Then the whisper started. Soft, almost like the rustle of dry leaves, carried inside by the wind. But the voice, it said my name. Ethan. I jerked back. My name. Nobody else knew I was here. Nobody. The whisper repeated, low, breathless, echoing from the wall itself. Ethan, come. I scanned the living room. Empty. No doors creaking, no one hiding behind furniture. Only the shadows stretching along the wall, pointing toward the hallway leading to the attic. A shiver ran down my spine. I wanted to run, but something held me back. Some psychological tether, an invisible thread pulling me forward. I inched toward the hallway. Every step brought a new detail into horrifying clarity. The shadow's fingers, thin, long, claw-like, scratched lightly against the wall as it moved. The sound was soft but maddening, like chalk on a blackboard, echoing in the otherwise silent house. Halfway down the hall, my breath caught. The hallway light flickered violently, and for a split second, the wall itself seemed alive. The wallpaper wrinkled unnaturally, and I swear I saw a face forming inside the shadow's dark mass. It smiled. I stumbled back, my body pressed against the cold hallway wall. Then I remembered the attic sketch, the one with my silhouette. I realized with a sickening clarity, the shadow wasn't just copying me, it was preparing to replace me. My own shadow from the first night had been a warning, a copy, a message, and now, the real danger had arrived. A figure capable of stepping out from darkness itself. A sudden creak from the stairs jerked me around. Nothing there. But the whisper returned, louder now. Not just my name. Ethan, upstairs now, before it's too late. I froze. The attic. Every instinct screamed at me to run. Every rational thought told me to call 911. But deep down, I knew that shadows and whispers don't follow ordinary rules. They wait. They hunt. They know fear. I took a deep breath and stepped forward, heading toward the staircase leading up to the attic, the place where everything had started. And as I ascended, the shadow stretched impossibly, following me, merging with the dim light, its presence growing heavier with each step. It was no longer just a shadow. It was something alive, something waiting to claim the house. And perhaps to claim me. The staircase groaned beneath my feet as I climbed toward the attic, the shadows shifting unnaturally along the walls like black veins crawling under skin. Every step tightened the air, making it heavy, suffocating, like breathing through wet cloth. Halfway up, the whisper returned. Soft. Close. Right behind my ear. Ethan, hurry. I spun around. Nothing. The hallway below sat eerily still, the dim light forming a pale, trembling circle on the wooden floor. But something felt off. Something in the geometry of the shadows changed. My shadow, cast by the flickering bulb, was there, but it wasn't moving the way it should. When I stepped up, it stepped back. When I turned my head, it stayed perfectly still. A cold pressure squeezed my chest. The shadow wasn't following me. It was watching me. I forced myself to keep climbing. The attic door loomed ahead, slightly open, a thin strip of darkness waiting like a gaping mouth. As I reached the landing, the temperature plummeted. My breath fogged out in white clouds, floating upward into the still air. I pushed the attic door open. The darkness inside greeted me like an old memory. The single dusty window cast a weak patch of gray light across the floor. And there, still pinned to the wooden wall, was the charcoal sketch of me. But something had changed. The blacked-out eyes were now cut out entirely, two oval holes torn through the paper. And behind those holes was nothing but darkness. Real, depthless darkness. I stepped closer, each heartbeat slamming against my ribs. The air smelled heavier than before, like burnt charcoal and damp soil, something old and rotting beneath the surface. Then I noticed it. A second sheet of paper tucked beneath the first. My fingers shook as I lifted the edge of the main sketch. The second drawing was newer, clearer, more detailed. It showed me standing in the attic, exactly where I was right now. Same window, same shadows, same angle. But in the drawing, I wasn't alone. A tall, featureless figure stood behind me, its hand resting on my shoulder. I whipped around. The attic was empty, but the air felt like 1,000 eyes were staring straight through me. My heartbeat thundered in my ears, drowning the silence for the first time since I arrived. Then, from the far corner of the attic, I heard a slow inhale. Not a creak, not the wind. A breath, long, deep, wet. I stepped back, my foot brushing something on the floor. I looked down. A trail of black dust, charcoal, leading behind a stack of old boxes. Something shifted there. A silhouette moved. A shape unfolded itself from the darkness like a long-hidden limb waking up. A voice rose from that corner, low and trembling. You weren't supposed to come back upstairs. The attic swallowed the light, and something began crawling toward me. The figure in the attic emerged slowly, impossibly tall, moving with a fluid grace that no human should have. It was featureless, its body a void, absorbing the dim light. Yet its movements cast a shadow within a shadow, a black ripple across the floor. Every instinct screamed at me to run. My legs locked. My throat felt paralyzed. The air was thick, heavy, tasting like old ashes mixed with wet wood. My own heartbeat sounded deafening. The shadow stretched toward me, its elongated fingers brushing along the attic floor, making a soft scraping sound, like nails across metal. Each scrape vibrated in my chest, making my bones ache. I stumbled backward. My hand grabbed the edge of the dusty windowsill. Cold, splintered wood bit into my palm. The shadow paused, tilting its head slightly, mocking, patient, watching. Then the whisper returned, louder, clearer, closer. Step into the darkness, or stay, and it will claim you. I stumbled again, tripping over the edge of an old crate. The crate toppled with a loud crash, sending a cloud of dust swirling in the dim light. The shadow flinched, its fluid form rippling, but it didn't stop. I scrambled to my feet and ran toward the attic door. My hand clutched the knob, trying to pull it open, but it was stuck, locked from the outside. Panic surged. The shadow flowed closer, and I could feel a pressure in the room, as if the walls themselves were bending inward. My lungs burned with each breath. Then I remembered the trail of black charcoal dust. Slowly, I followed it toward a corner where boxes were stacked haphazardly. Beneath them, I saw the creaking shape of the old attic ladder, leading to a smaller loft above. It wasn't much, but it was my only escape. I grabbed the ladder and began climbing, each rung groaning under my weight. The shadow flowed after me, stretching, reshaping, reaching with a long, tendril-like arm. From above, a cold wind gusted. It smelled of charcoal and rotting paper, like the house itself exhaling. My foot hit the loft floor. I glanced back. The shadow paused at the ladder, waiting, patient, smiling with its absence of face. I crouched low, scanning the loft. Dust covered the wooden floor, boxes stacked against the walls, and a mirror leaning in the corner. I crept closer. My reflection stared back, but it wasn't just me. Behind my mirrored reflection, a black silhouette stood, mimicking every movement, stretching slightly longer than my own body. I gasped and stumbled. The shadow behind me moved independently, detaching itself from the wall, its form flowing like smoke. The whisper returned, chillingly calm. You are mine, as it was mine before and before. The mirror fogged. My reflection warped. The figure in the glass reached out with its void-like hand. I realized in horror. It didn't just want me to see it. It wanted me inside it. I backed away toward the loft edge and froze. The attic door creaked open slowly from below. And I knew, whatever was behind that door wasn't waiting for me anymore. It was coming up. The attic door at the bottom of the ladder creaked wider, then wider still, until the darkness below yawned open like a vast, breathing throat. I froze at the loft's edge, gripping the wooden beam so tightly my knuckles whitened. My breath steamed in the cold air. From below came a slow, heavy footstep, not the fluid glide of the shadow, but something solid, weight-bearing, something human. The temperature dropped so sharply the glass mirror behind me cracked with a soft but violent snap. I didn't dare turn around. Another footstep. Closer. Deliberate. Someone, or something, was climbing the attic ladder. My pulse slammed painfully against my ribs. Who's there? I whispered, though I already knew no normal voice would answer. But a voice did answer. A man's voice. Low, shaky, tired. Right below me. Don't move, it sees movement. I leaned forward just enough to see the man's face appear over the top rung of the ladder. My stomach twisted. It was the same man from the Nest Cam footage. The blurred-faced stranger from my porch. But now, up close, he wasn't blurry. He was pale, gaunt, with deep blue veins marking his skin like cracked marble. His eyes were sunken, ringed in purple hollows, and his torn gray coat looked worse in person, damp, frayed, and dusted with charcoal. He climbed the last few rungs and collapsed onto the attic floor, breathing hard. Close the loft hatch, he rasped. I hesitated. Below him, the shadow creature pulsed upward, stretching its form like liquid darkness pressed against glass. Close it, he shouted. I grabbed the loft's wooden hatch and slammed it shut just as the shadow's hand surged upward, smearing a long black streak across the wood. The man grabbed my shoulder, his grip ice cold. It followed you, he whispered. It woke up because you moved into this house. His voice cracked as he spoke, like he hadn't used it in years. I stared at him. Who are you? He swallowed, eyes trembling. My name is Daniel. Daniel Rook. My breath caught. That name. I had seen it. On the old, rusted mailbox at the end of Ashford Lane. The mailbox I thought belonged to the previous owner. You lived here? I asked. His voice trembled. I still do. Before I could respond, the loft hatch beneath us buckled. Once. Twice. The wood flexed inward, as though something heavy was pressing from below. Daniel's face turned pale. It knows you're with me. It's trying to finish what it started. Finish what? I whispered. He looked at me with hollow, haunted eyes. The shadow doesn't just copy people, he said. It replaces them. My stomach dropped. Below us, the hatch cracked sharply, a long fracture splitting down the center. The whole loft shook as the shadow forcefully rammed the wood. Daniel grabbed my arm. We need to get out before it takes your shape. Another violent slam. Dust rained from the ceiling. The hatch split open, and from the darkness below, a hand like liquid night reached through. The power didn't just go out this time. Every light in Block 47 died at once, as if something had inhaled all the electricity in one slow, greedy breath. The corridor outside my apartment turned completely black, except for the faint red emergency bulb that flickered like a heartbeat running out of blood. I pressed my back against the door, clutching the recording device that had captured Aiden's whispers from the night he vanished. The last thing he said, before the line drowned in static, echoed inside my head. Don't look at its face, no matter what. A sudden thud hit my door. Not a knock. Not like a human. More like someone had thrown their entire weight against it, testing its strength and enjoying the sound. I held my breath. Then, slowly, a shadow leaked from the gap beneath the door, not moving like smoke, more like thick oil pushing itself through a too small space. The shape stretched across the floor, long and crooked like broken fingers reaching for me. The hallway outside was silent. No footsteps, no breathing, no human presence at all. But then, a whisper slithered through the keyhole. Open the door, Lucas. I finally found you. It wasn't Aiden's voice. It wasn't even close. It sounded like 100 overlapping tones. Children, adults, old men, infants, all speaking the same sentence in a single, cracked harmony. My pulse hammered in my ears. I didn't answer. I didn't move. The whisper changed. You left the gate unlocked. Someone walked in. A chill wrapped around my spine. The front gate of the abandoned school. Yes. In part 3, I had run out without locking it. It had been waiting since then, watching, following me back. The recording device in my hand suddenly turned on by itself. The LED flashed, and Aiden's distorted voice played again. Only this time, there were new words that weren't there before. It copies. It learns. It becomes the last person you failed to save. My fingers trembled. Outside, the thing dragged its knuckles slowly across my door, scraping, 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 until a thin crack appeared in the wood. Then it began to laugh. Not loud, not aggressive, soft, childlike, almost playful. Open it, or I'll show you his face right here. I squeezed my eyes shut. Aiden's warning repeated in my skull, don't look at its face. The emergency light outside faded completely. Darkness swallowed everything. And then, silence. No knocking, no whispering, no shadow under the door. Just quiet. I dared to breathe again. When I glanced at the door, there was now a handprint on it. Large, inhuman, pressed into the wood from the inside. My heart stopped, because I hadn't opened the door. Something else had. And from the far corner of my apartment, a voice I knew too well whispered, Lucas, why didn't you wait for me? If you enjoyed this horror story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell icon for more terrifying stories.